It was another wild and wacky weekend in the LCS, and a lot of people are saying this is the most competitive one yet, and I can't disagree based on the results. We're going to dive into that on the LCS report. Welcome back to another Saturday edition of the LCS Report. I'm Robert, and we are going to be looking at some of the big games and some of the big players from this weekend. And, there were a lot of crazy games this weekend, to say the least. I am very interested. You're seeing I'm pulling one up because I wanted to move it. Sorry, but the standings definitely got shifted up, right? We've got FlyQuest up at the top, the only undefeated team. Then you had C9, EG, and 100 Thieves all get to 3-1. TL were able to find their way back to 2-2. CLG unfortunately dropped to 2-2 along with TSM. Immortals got their first win, and Golden Guardians and Dignitas still remain as the only teams with no wins, which is not the way anybody was really expecting this season to go. I am very intrigued by how everything happened, and I think that we're going to need to do a little bit of parsing through everything and seeing what happens. So we're going to start with the TSM Evil Geniuses game. And the main reason for this is because Evil Geniuses are just fine. Actually, they're more than fine. The two people who carried them and have been carrying them are actually the two players from 100 Thieves, which is why I know that they are going to be fine. This TSM game, it actually started off a little bit closer than you think. If you look here, obviously, right around that 14-minute mark before the first tower went down and right after the dragon went down, Evil Geniuses dominated this game realistically from start to finish. TSM just didn't have a damage source after Neo especially was killed at the very beginning of the game. But realistically, this Evil Geniuses team, they may not be at the top of the standings right now, but everybody was worried after their week 1 performance. How's JoJo gonna do? What's gonna happen? And JoJo still wasn't great, but he also got really countered. I mean, Galio is a very tough counter for a Rise, to be honest. And so, TSM were able to take advantage of it. Maple and Boogie got an early kill early in the game, and Maple actually had a 2-0 lead at one point over JoJo, but JoJo was able to come back. He was able to farm, which Rises are able to do. He had some nice flanks. He was able to get off some good chain combos, everything. But the stars of the show are Someday and FBI. And Vulcan, realistically, too. The bot lane looks like it's doing just fine. I think they are very much encouraging FBI, to be the best version of himself, which is something that I talked about at the beginning of the season that I wanted to see. I really felt like this was a team that was going to enable him. It wasn't going to be that he's the only carry, right? With some of the 100 Thieves teams, because the mid laners were always so unreliable, it made it so that FBI kind of had to carry. In some games, that meant that if he didn't get an early lead, he'd have to kind of just farm for 10 minutes, look like he was doing nothing, and then try to carry in team fights. That is not the case on this team. They are going balls to the walls. They are going all out. This team is very solid. I think anybody who would argue differently is wrong. This was just the beginning of a very good weekend for them. We move on to the game of the week, which was FlyQuest Cloud9. And to be honest, this game was a bit of a stomp. I really think Cloud9 tried to ego them, right? I think Fudge, Fiora, buddy, you gotta be done with it. It's just gotta be done. I just don't think this is a good pick for him. He consistently tries to bring it out, and it just doesn't work. And it's not that he didn't have advantages and everything in the top lane and laning. The problem is that after laning phase, he is just getting picked off, and he doesn't get enough of a lead during the laning phase to be able to to be able to push it into the rest of his team like he is when he was on the Cassante, for example, for the first couple games. So, I'd like to see him pick something else. I think, it doesn't look like Jax was banned. I think Jax would have been fine here. I did see that they banned the Gwen, so, that major counter is not as good. into Cassante, but, just something else would be preferable to watching him play Fiora and be better. He still looks better than he did last year on that Fiora, but it obviously wasn't enough. And then you've got, Diplex playing his Akali, which is great, but Vicla's playing the Sylas, and that's just something that, once they got the 2v2 kill, speak of bringing out the surprise of Mumu, Prince and Winsome. I mean, Winsome looks fine, by the way. And Prince was solid. The bot lane was pretty boring, to be honest with you. But this game just kind of got steamrolled by Vikla and Spica, which was awesome. Impact was able to, get some kills later in the game. And again, I mean, that bot lane of Prince and Winsome, they were able to keep Berserker from doing anything. I mean, he was pretty much non-existent in this game. So FlyQuest are looking by far and away the best team. The fact that they smashed Cloud9 is, I think, a very major indicator of how good this team is going to be. I am, I don't know, cautiously optimistic about how this team might look as we continue going on into the year. The next one, and the last game that we're going to look at here, is the Immortals game, the Immortals CLG game. Immortals finally got a win. Ablaze Olive is no longer the only player in the LCS that's not a support without a kill. He now has 2 kills. Good for him. He helped his KDA quite substantially with the 208 game, honestly. And Immortals themselves had a much better weekend. They came in with only 6 kills in the first 2 games of the year, which is astronomically bad. They were able to get 7 in their first game, even though it was a loss. 17 here. Kenvi was finally enabled. Guys, Kenvi and Revenge are your carries. This is how you will win games. And I don't even think Revenge is like great or anything, but when you give him resources, he is still at least above average, which is good enough in the LCS right now, okay? It's not to, put him down. I know that the words I'm using probably are not giving him enough credit, to be honest with you, because I think Revenge has pop-off ability. I just think he's very inconsistent with it, okay? So I know I'm giving him the good and then I'm giving bad. This game was great, though. He looked really good on Cassante. I'm very impressed with him. I think he works well with Kenvi. And they finally they gave Kenvi his signature champion. And guess what? All he did was keep them alive in important fights. And yes, he did lose a Smite fight. Whatever. That's fine. But this was a good game. This was a good game from them against a good team that had really good champions. Palafox kind of trolled, to be honest with you. Down in the bot lane, he had an opportunity to 1v2 against Tactical and Fleshy, and he completely whiffed his ult, which automatically got him killed, basically. I think if he hits that ult, I think he turns that around, and I actually think they win the game at that point. The whole game isn't on him, but I think that he gets rolling, he gets a couple kills under his belt by doing that, and he puts them in a really bad position because they were low enough health to where he could... all it takes is a double Q and a couple more hits, and I think they're maybe probably one hit on Tactical specifically, and I think that he's dead there, and then Fleshy's just getting chased down by him. So, I think that the game could have vastly changed on that play, but again, he's not the main problem, but it's good for Immortals to show, because I really felt like Immortals were the worst team in the LCS by a pretty significant margin. But they finally allowed for Kenvi. All of these champions they picked, by the way, they were aggressive. They were, they had some forgiving nature in them, right? Like the ability to get out. And they allowed Kenvi to do what I think Kenvi wants to do, which is, kind of lead the game, not only probably through his voice, right, and telling them what to do, but through his actions on the Rift as well, right? You could see where he went, the rest of the team went, right? When the team was in a bad position, he dropped his ult, they would fight their way out of it. Kindred is a good champion, yes, and obviously it's one of his best, but I think if they allow more focus around where Kenvi is going and focus on what he's going to try to do within the game and just kind of do what they did in the last 9 games of last split. This guy is really good. He is. He's very good. I want to see them give him a chance. I'm still not convinced on a Blaze Olive or Tactical right now as your carries, but you know what? They played well enough against a good team. A team that was honestly one of the better teams in the LCS coming into this game. So good for them on that one. The games that the players specifically that I want to look at and the team that I want to take a look at here as we head into the end of week 2 is I want to look at Hunter Thieves because there was some concern. They went 1-1 in the first week, and their loss was not a good one. Their win was only against Immortals, and their first win was realistically only against Dignitas. I'm sorry to say, but beating Immortals, Dignitas, or Golden Guardians up until Immortals win over CLG was just kind of expected. Like, they're not terrible teams, especially by old standards, but in today's LCS, they're just not as good. And so this Dignitas win was kind of like whatever for me. Doublelift got Zeri again, Bjergsen got Azir again, but you could start to see what this team is about, right? Tenacity and Busio are playing the side, like they're playing supportive, help the team type champions, right? Because they're still learning their way, they're still learning, their laning matchups and everything like that. That's what you want for young players. Like, you want to enable them if you need them to. And I think as the year goes on, I think they'll give Tenacity specifically chances to play more carry-oriented teams where they could focus some more resources into him. But playing low-resourced, weak side champions is going to be a good thing for him. He has to learn that style, I think, to be successful in the LCS. We already know he has a carry style, so that's fine. But you have Closer on Engage, and then you're allowing for your two legends of the game to carry you. And this is the way that they have to play, I think, to win. Now, I will express that while Doublelift is absolutely popping off, right? He goes, what is that? 17, 3, and 12 for this weekend, which is insane, right? But all of his wins right now are on Zeri. I want to see teams taking away the Zeri. If they take away the Zeri, I really wonder how he's going to play. How is their, team going to shift? We saw TSM try to take away they did take away the Azir from Bjergsen. He pulls out his signature pick, kind of probably, I'm sure, as a middle finger to TSM with the Zillion. And it's, but like you can see here, even, it's kind of the same thing, right? Tenacity, a low resource champion that can do what he needs to do in the top lane, right? Solo, for some reason, trolled and picked Gangplank. That was very strange. Boogie had a good champion, but his engages weren't great. He was constantly getting caught out. He looked a little bit more like what we expected, unfortunately. But you can see the build here, right? It's buff up the rest of the team, allow them to have, like, Tenacity was technically the second carry on this team, but we know when Bjergsen's playing the Zillion, literally anybody can carry because he's just going to keep them alive forever and give perfect stuns to the rest of the team. So I like what I'm seeing here from this Hunter Thieves team. They are clearly finding their identity, which is something that Bjergsen and the Team Liquid team of last year could not figure out. This year, it's very clear to me, right? Pick hyper carries for Doublelift, allow for Bjergsen to carry, maybe give him, some technically supportive picks with Zillion to allow Tenacity to do a little bit more damage, and let Closer, dive in, right? I think we're going to start to see a shift in bans against them. I really do. Either that, or I think people are going to, stay away from the Lucian Nami and challenge them and say, hey, we'll pick the Zeri and see what you do. So we're starting to see the meta kind of solidify for Hunter Thieves, and if they consistently are getting the picks that they want, then I think that's going to be a major problem. Like, if people are more worried about Kassadin than Bjergsen's Azir, I'm questioning that a little bit. Like, maybe you let the Kassadin go through and challenge them to take it and take the Azir away, right? Or maybe you let the Wukong through because Closer's been really good on the Vi, right? Like, whatever it is, shifts are going to have to be made against this team, but I think Hunter Thieves fans should be really excited. I think it's a great start to the year for them, and Tenacity and Busio are already kind of just fitting into their roles, which I think is really important. So we're going to have to see. I'm really excited to see this Hunter Thieves team continue to do what they're going to do, and I'm loving this season of the LCS right now. I think our top 5 teams right now are there. I think it's Fly, C9, EG, Hunter Thieves, TL. It's kind of about what we expected. I think CLG can move their way into it. We will have to see. The last 2 games weren't exactly inspiring to me, and losing to Immortals is tough. But hey, sometimes teams like CLG and TSM have bad weekends. That's okay. What do they do in week 3 now to recover, right? You went 2-0 in one week, 0-2 in another. How are they going to do it? Can Golden Guardians or Dignitas find their wins? I haven't looked ahead, but if they play each other, obviously one of them will find a win, but you know what I mean. Like, can they start figuring themselves out? Because I think people like Gory have looked really good. I even think that Armit hasn't been as bad as people think. Not, but, you know, Jensen Santorin have been okay. I really still think that bot lane's a liability for Dignitas, but we'll have to see. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited to talk about it more on Monday. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do there yet. It may be another more creative episode, but it could also just be power rankings. So we'll have to see. But yeah, with that, I'll catch you guys on the next one.